Report of the City of Indianola study session. We'll begin with Andy Litt in the capital improvement plan.
Mayor, members of the council, I'm here to present the capital improvement plan for FY 2024 to 2028. This is the first step in the process for beginning the budget for FY 24. One of the first steps, one of the first stages. First, I want to thank all the department heads for their assistance throughout the budget process, but to begin with the CIP, they entered their request into our ClearGov module, and we were able to put it together into the spreadsheets that you'll see here shortly into the slides. The first thing I wanted to point out is that we do have a policy with the city for our capital improvement plan. I'm not going to read all of this up verbatim, but what I want to stress is that this is a 5-year plan and it's not final. So some things on here may change due to available funding and council decisions as we move forward into the budget process. The next slide is some of the definitions that you'll hear when we talk about capital improvement plan or capital improvement project. Mainly what we look at items, either vehicles, equipment, or projects that are going to be $5,000 less or $5,000 or more, and that are going to last at least 3 to 5 years or even more. There's been a discussion. I know my compatriots in the metro, they're working on their own CIP, and the discussion lately was, is 5,000 too low because they're getting a lot because of cost increase, or is that too low? So we're getting a lot of little things going into the CIP. But a lot of us are sticking with $5,000 for right now, but it may increase. So right now it's $5,000 and lasts at least 3 to 5 years. The benefits of CIP. So there's several benefits of having a CIP. Mainly, it allows you to better project what your expenses are going to be, better plan, better to maintain vehicles and equipment. It also allows employees in other departments to know what's going on across the city. So people work in the library will know what's going on in the streets. People work in parks will know what's going on in community development, things like that. And also regional cooperation. So we just recently had that meeting with IMU to let them know what our CIP is. What do we have projects coming up so they can better budget themselves, and then we can learn what they have on their plan so we can budget accordingly. And then also lets other regional partners such as county and the state know what we have in our plan, in our budget, so that they can plan accordingly as well. So to start out with the capital, the CIP, we start out with vehicles and equipment. This is managed through our Fund 190. Currently mainly funded through department contributions and also from property tax revenue. And as we do with all our CIP projects, we look for any donations or grants that might be able to offset those costs.
Andy, can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
What's our annual contribution from property taxes on that?
Okay, we got that coming up.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Thank you. So vehicles and equipment for FY 2024. I'm not going to go through all of these, but I will highlight a few of them. Community development, they're looking at a vehicle for an additional inspector. As we go into operational budgeting, we'll be taking a look at additional personnel requests that the departments may have. The community development's already indicate that they may be looking at a new inspector, so we'll be looking at if this moves forward with another inspector. And then the police are adding new duty rifles to their program. So this is going to be the first year for including duty rifles. There'll be a couple more years moving forward of 32,000 more in towards duty rifles. And then the council will consider tonight the Water Resource Recovery Department Vector jet, the big truck with the round, with the tank on the back that helps clean out sewers. This evening for FY24, because of supply chain issues, a lot of our equipment, and I'll be mentioning this again later on, we need to order it ahead of time because it'll be 12 to 15 months before we see it, if not longer, for larger vehicles such as the fire truck. So, and then vehicles and equipment for FY 2025, 2028. Moving forward, couple of items here. We are looking at replacing 331 fire engine in 2027, which will be 27 years old. So quite old. We don't want the fire truck breaking down on the way to a fire. So we want to look at replacing that vehicle. And then we do a normal 3-year rotation for ambulance. We have 4 ambulances and we do a 3-year rotation. So we'll have another one coming up in FY 25 and then another one coming up in FY 28. As you can see underneath the streets, there's a lot of larger equipment. We'll have the street sweeper coming up in FY 25, and then a few of the dump trucks that are up there in cost as well. So here's the funding matrix for vehicles and equipment. There are, as you notice down at the bottom, there is a couple of negative balances there at the ending of FY 24 and 25. I'm not overly concerned about those because the ending fund balances jump right back up the following years. This is mainly just for timing and things like that that will make those balances possibly go negative. I did highlight the road use tax fund contributions because we're bumping that up because of those larger purchases underneath the street department. So we're bumping that up to around 300,000, and then we have a increase in property tax there, 150,000, and then back down to 100,000 in FY 25.
And did road use tax decrease? Is that because of the less fuel is being used, so therefore we have less of the gas tax? Is that what the reason?
You mean the future years, or?
Yes, the future. So
no, this is mainly dealing with costs. So this is what contribution we need to take from road use to meet their needs over that period of, over a period of 5 years, to meet their needs for all those vehicles that were in the previous slides.
okay.
So the remainder of that is used for operational or maintenance.
Right, operational, and then
roads.
also street projects, things like that. Then our CIP infrastructure portion of the CIP managed through funds 300, 301, 321 through 325. All our 300s are capital projects. So when we talk about 100, 200, 300, 300 is our capital projects, except for our utility funds, which 710 is our sanitary sewer capital projects, and then 650 is our storm sewer utility capital project fund. And then we, again, department contributions, property tax revenue, and then gas franchise fee, which we collect from Mid-America, 5% on their revenue that they collect on natural gas. And then we currently have that targeted for street projects. And then again, we seek to grants and donations to offset our costs. And then we have just recently set up Fund 354 for the industrial park improvements, which the council recently approved borrowing funds for those improvements.
Sorry. I'm going to go back to the matrix you had on the last page there on the property tax. Would it make some sense, just as a council perspective, for us to maybe bump that to $125,000 or something, just so we're not running negative balances for a year or so? I mean,
Oh, we can look at that as we move forward, going forward.
right.
Right now, I'm just trying to make sure that we have enough property tax for for our operational needs,
Right.
and then also for our street projects.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Because it goes up
Yeah, it jumps to
easily
319, I
into
see
a
that,
positive balance in
Yeah.
future years. So
But it seems like obviously vehicles are getting much, much more expensive. I mean, I just noticed, I think we had budgeted for a truck for the wastewater facility, 4-wheel drive crew cab type truck, about 100,000, and everything's more expensive. I'm just kind of wondering if we shouldn't be a little more proactive there on that. That's all I'm asking.
well, like I said, it's a plan. So
Yeah.
available funding could change.
Yep.
And
Thank you.
we may be needing to move some things.
Yep.
Around. When we look at our general fund CIP for 2024, 2028, mainly we're looking at things for Parks and Rec and for library. Parks and Rec mainly looks at doing trails. And then the library recently did their CIP review, and I know Michelle will bring this up again later on in her annual report, but that showed a lot of needs that are in the library. CIP, things that need to be repaired or replaced around the library. And then community development as part of the downtown streetscape. We still have the wayfinding monuments. That's dependent on funding. Hopefully we'll have funding left over in that project that will go towards the wayfinding monuments. And then the funding matrix for the general fund infrastructure. If you have any questions, I don't really have anything to point out on this. As long as the contributions from the departments work out, we stay in the positive side. So, then for the CIP infrastructure, AP has some things in here for building grounds maintenance. We're working on the signals at Buxton and 2nd Avenue. We're working on USTEP. I think it's USTEP application to help fund that. And then mainly for 23 through 25, we're concentrating on Hillcrest and K Street so that we can concentrate on those projects. As you'll see in our matrix, some of the higher costs have forced us to move our projects that we had a couple of the projects that were in 2025 and 2027. We had those concurrently with Hillcrest and K Street, but because of the increased cost for Hillcrest and K Street, we've had to move those forward.
And maybe we should talk a little bit more in depth about that. 'Cause I know that the council is asked about the funding for K Street. Do we have significant, sufficient funding to meet those needs? We do if we push some of these other maintenance projects off, but there's really, the funding that has been put in place was secured for the Hillcrest project and the K Street project. When we went through and got bonding and funding prior to my time, all the public hearings were held. And so ethically, I mean, those are the projects that really need to be utilized those funds for and complete those efforts before taking on additional projects. Is there sufficient funding for those projects today? We believe there is, but it may impact some of those other projects. When you go back to the council's prioritization and the strategic plan, you really have another set of elements, which is 1, these 2 projects. 2, what do we do with the other 6 miles of non-paved roads in the community? And 3, how do we maintain the existing roads that we have, which are currently deficient? And so there are other funding needs that we have to consider meeting the maintenance required on our existing roads and a plan to pave the rest. So is there any discussion the council wants to have on these things? We have AP here to talk about those 2.
Well, I know somewhere in one of the meetings it was mentioned that, and it might have been before January, but there was a discussion about maybe doing some asphalt overlays on portions of our roads that are currently needing some repair. And in the 90s, we did an asphalt overlay on Iowa Street that was recently, what was it, 2 or 3 years ago, repaved from, I don't know, remember, East Street maybe, or E Street, somewhere in there, up to about Howard.
Let's say Howard.
Yeah, somewhere. But that was done as an asphalt overlay. And when we did that in the 90s, it was only intended to be about a 10 to 12 year fix. Well, it ended up being almost 23 years. So I'm kind of wondering if that's not enough.
Well, and I think it is. I think some of these though are the major. Some of those are the bad ones where they're too beyond being able to do the overlay, because the overlay is on. If I'm correct, the AP is on the good and above. We can do overlays, but anything beyond the good, we're
correct. I mean, asphalt overlays are 2 or 3 inches of asphalt over good condition concrete.
Now you cannot do overlay on gravel roads because
Right.
they're already sub-base, so it's only on good condition concrete. If the concrete is bad, the cracks reflect up on the surface, it won't last longer.
Do you think any of these on your minor, there's an opportunity for asphalt overlay?
Yes,
on
there
there?
is. Yes,
Good, thank you.
And so Ben, you're saying, we secured money for Hillcrest and South Cave. Ethically, that's where the money should go, but it could affect other projects. So you're meaning it could affect these other major and minor projects, and that's maybe where we could look at some other options.
And what I'm saying, that it could impact those, what it really is saying, when it comes back to Andy's presentation and the previous CIPs that the council has looked at, that some of those projects may need to be pushed off into future years. There's only so many dollars to work with, and we have to live within our constraints.
Right.
Do
Yeah,
you know
this,
specifically what ones? I mean, would it be these or the other things?
And I think that would go on to the next.
well, yeah,
That's
this is,
coming yet? Okay.
these are the ones that, the major minor projects that we have listed here for future years are the ones that we moved forward. And so we'll have to look at those as, what available funding that we have for these projects. So when we look at the funding matrix for this, we up here for the federal funding, we have the second half of the ARPA funds that go for the Boston project, and then also in this one, we have the SERPTA money, the federal aid money coming in for the Hillcrest project. But as far as funding for Hillcrest and K Street, we've borrowed the money, as Ben said, and then moving forward to meet the needs for our future projects, we have increased the gas franchise fee. We did have a bump in this because the council previous had increased the percent from 3% to 5%. So we did have an increase in funding, so we're able to bump that up a little bit. We went from 500,000 to 800,000 every 2 years to help fund street projects. But we have also looked at road use, increasing that to 300,000. I think this is something that we had from last year's CIP where we've had 300,000 coming over. We were at about 250,000, but we've had to increase that up to 300,000 for our street projects. Then we also have 300,000 coming from property tax towards our street projects.
Can I ask if, I think the bond language that we had on the lost funds allows us to use those for streets eventually, is that correct as well?
What's that?
The bond language, is that correct? That we can use those on streets down the road if we need to?
For the
loss.
infrastructure,
Last one.
I'll have to check with Mike to make sure that we can do that.
Okay.
But I mean, that's if we have anything left over, because.
Right, I understand,
we're
right?
spending that on
I know that
Industrial park.
with prices increasing as much as they have, that, there's gonna be probably an 8% increase. We're gonna budget what we budget, but I still think there's probably gonna be about an 8% increase in lost revenue simply from the increase in sales on certain items, and so you're gonna have that money coming in too, so that might be an option for us down the road.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, our next set of infrastructure projects we have is our water resource recovery department. I have a slide here that points out some of their projects that they have coming up for 24 through 28. Not too many because we're concentrating on getting the new plant started up, and then some of the funding that I'll share on the next slide. One of the big issues that we have, last time we met with HR Green, they gave us a price tag for demolition of the current facility at $2 million. And worst case scenario, so we put this in the funding as far as the $2 million. So that's part of our CIP moving forward. That's a decision that hasn't been made by the council, but we're including in our CIP so that we can use that as part of our projection for our cost. So I think that's kind of a decision that we need to have with Howard R. Green, HR Green, and the council needs to have a discussion on that moving forward. Obviously, there's going to be some remediation costs involved there, but as far as what we do with the whole facility, the buildings and things like that, it's something that we'll need to discuss. Right now, as you can see on this slide for our funding matrix, I do have it highlighted there for the demolition of the current plan. We also have an increase in our sanitary service charges that are coming in. Right now, we're collecting right around 4 million. And I have 4.4 million in there. So right now, I have Mike Maloney from DA Davidson going over our usage for sanitary sewer customers to see what kind of increase we may need to look at to meet our operational, but also our CIP. One of the unknowns that we have, we don't know what the utility costs are going to be for the new facility. And then also we need to look at what are we going to do with the current facility. You know, are we going to need additional people to help run the new facility? Okay, then for our last two slides here are for our stormwater utility. This year we're looking at the Clinton Avenue culvert, quite a big project there. And then our other projects, looking at some drainage issues around. AP's also looking at modeling and data collection and continued maintenance on the system. Since the council raised the stormwater utility fee, we were looking at, when we did the stormwater utility master plan, we were looking at issues around the city that were going to take about 25 years. Because of that increase in fees, we cut that down to 9. We have several issues that need to be addressed moving on into the future. And so our funding matrix for that is here. There's only, we have a sizable amount in that fund, and we could probably address more projects every year. But there's only so much that we can address as far as having people available to oversee those projects. So right now, AP is working on projecting on, setting up projects and adding those into his CIP program. So we'll look at doing more projects as we move forward into the future.
Neighbors will be really happy about that.
Just a question. I don't see anything in here about the Brookwood issue with runoff on that drainage area there north of Euclid. Is that something that we're going to be looking at here in the future, AD?
Where is this, Steve?
Brookwood Avenue, Brookwood, it's one block east or west of Kenwood on Euclid. It's a little curved street that's in there. There's some erosion and some other things going on behind those houses. So some of the houses have lost significant land because of the erosion that's there. And I apologize for not having this before.
No, that's fine. I'll have to go and take a look at this, Steve.
Yeah.
We had recognized critical infrastructure improvements as a part of our stormwater master plan that was completed by Snyder and Associates. And I can't recall if that was included or not. If not, we'll certainly take a look at that.
Well, last fall, when I was door knocking, I talked to a lady that lives about 4 houses in. I think I sent you her name. Yeah. Ben has her name, and she has lost about 6 feet of the ground and actually started to tilt her deck down towards the creek there. So I don't know if it's a stormwater issue, but there is I think it's a sanitary pipe that's exposed there too. So we probably need to look at that.
Sure.
Thank you. Sorry about not telling you about that.
So Brookwood Drive, correct?
Yes.
Let's see.
So our issues and concerns to be addressed as we move forward, we're going to be dealing with supply chain issues for vehicles and equipment for quite some time. The increased cost of our street projects, and then another discussion point is going to be the demolition, or what are we going to do with the existing wastewater treatment facility? And dealing with the increased cost there with the wastewater treatment.
Andy, how soon do you think the decision needs to be made on that?
I'm not sure if probably beginning of next year or something like that, probably soon. I think that's more of a discussion we need to have with HR.
Is there a hurry to demo it?
I think it's more of a remediation that we need to be concerned about, cleaning out like the sludge tank and anything immediate that needs to be taken care of.
Is there any, and maybe I'm wrong here, but I don't know if we haven't talked about whether sell or keep it or whatever the case is, but has there been discussion among staff about selling or keeping that facility or that property rather?
And
Yeah, so we have talked about it a little bit, and you're correct, Andy. There is a certain amount of remediation that we need to do to take care of any kind of hazardous materials and the sludge and everything that's out there. That's just a part of the total recapture of the property and making it available. The issues that we really have is that the city is continuing to grow north, and as the city continues to grow north, is it best to hold on to that property? Is it going to be towards the middle of our city as we continue to evolve that direction? Is there future development potential that's years out, as opposed to maybe selling or abandoning that property? Right now, the golf course pulls water from that facility,
Right.
and I know there's potentially some interest there that Rick Graves has shared. There's other municipal uses that could be accomplished through the utilization of that property, or we just plainly retain it so that we're able to acquire in the future.
In the back of my mind is just thinking, it might be a source of income if we need to look at that for the wastewater treatment, for the CIP for this area. And so it's just a thought.
Yeah.
Once it's cleaned up, the only thing we would have to have is just an easement for where the trunk line goes through, correct? And that's it, just that narrow. Otherwise, the whole thing could be, okay.
How many acres are there? Do we know?
Is that something we can put on, talk about
37.
maybe in November or
Yeah.
December?
think it's
Study
37.
session?
We can. There is no urgency. We could keep it for as long as we want. I
Well,
know.
right, but I agree. I think we need to at least start having that conversation because you brought up some points I hadn't even thought about, but yeah, I think we should at least start the conversation with HR Green and find out from them what all things have to be done minimally and then go from there.
Good point. Good point.
What's the soil? I mean, do we have to worry about contamination in our soil there?
I don't believe so. The plant's been operating just fine and there's no issues. Obviously, this is going to the new facility expands our capacity and our ability to.
Oh, I meant for like buildable, like, oh, we can add homes on that land, there won't be any problem. Great, perfect.
I mean, obviously, our engineers would need to take a look at that.
One last question I have is, I assume we buy all of our vehicles through the state bid process?
we don't do it all through the state. One of the purchasing co-ops that we've been looking at right now is Sourcewell, which is a bidding cooperative with a bunch of governments. They arrange contracts and do bidding that way, so the bidding's already done for us. And we've been finding really good competitive prices on there, not only for fire vehicles, but also the Vector jet for that. But a lot of our the police vehicles come through the state contract.
I was just wondering if our local auto dealers are part of that state bid process or not. It'd be nice if we could find some way to work with those folks too, just simply because they're in the community. But I understand that obviously we got to look at the best price. So.
Typically, when you buy through the state, you can buy through any dealership, and it doesn't really give them much profitability because it is a state bid price, why not? But it increases their volume, which can help the local market.
Okay, perfect.
Any questions on the embassy?
Thank you.
Okay, no.
Thanks for the
Thank
heads up.
you.
You're really on top of this.
Yep.
Okay, we will move on to a discussion regarding Wonder on Buxton, a hometown pride project. And inside of your packet is a presentation from that.
No, I did not.
They had a beautiful fireworks show.
Yeah, they did.
It was beautiful. I was impressed. And I love the glow. Oh, it's nice.
Sorry to never spoke to you ahead of time. Yeah. Michael. Huh?
That one you talked to me about.
Since the euphoria weekend.
I don't have to put people in the spot.
Yeah, and you look good.
Jason, yeah, there you go.
Calling the man we need. There we go.
Good. Good evening. While we're working on the tech, I'm Heidi Levine. I'm a member of the Indianola Hometown Pride Committee and part of the planning team for the Wonder on Buxton project. Jen Pfeiffer Mulaney, and I'm a former committee member, but still sit on the Wander Buxton committee.
Jason's the hero, and he covered everything for us. And I'm Doug Byland, Parks and Recreation Director, the staff liaison for the project. I'll just go here quick because I know we're short on time. We got about 15 minutes. I think there's a lot of questions later on. But the project goals, I know everybody knows this. We talked about this in June. I couldn't believe it was that long ago, but it was back in June. Connect the downtown square to Simpson College in a visible and celebratory way. Provide the gathering spaces for the community events, and attract visitors, and then celebrate and strengthen the community pride. So, with some updated photos and so on in there. One of the things you can do is go on our website. I need to share that link, but Lauren and the group with Hometown Pride came up with a website to start selling this, to start selling it to the community. It's been on the Facebook as well. But using the parking lot improvements here around the county administration building, and that's one of the things that the county has awarded us $20,000 in ARPA funds to do those improvements, which include the parking lot, includes some portable temporary space for gatherings, some sidewalk art, the metal planters, the signage, and then decorative screening for the area. I think Ron asked a couple weeks ago about the recycle bins, and that's a county decision that they're working on right now as not as a part of this project, but in their future too. So
Do you think that's something we could like maybe build like temporary like fences around, maybe work with
that's
an Eagle Scout team
That's one
and
of
maybe
the
make
things
sure we're getting that done if we're moving forward with this? Because
Yep.
I've been here for 3 years. They're gonna work on those dumpsters and all they did was move them to another side of the.
and remember, this is county property, so
Absolutely.
they have the ultimate say in what they will allow to be done. Am I taking over if you guys want to talk? I'm quick and fast. I apologize. The next part of the sculpture series and talking about the clouds, Wonder at Buxton, and why the clouds were selected, and then really to talk about storytelling and history and culture and everything else that Indianola is all about. So we're working with the Public Arts Commission, also with Altogether, the consultant on the art, about getting a little bit more detail on these, but also these are just some of the ideas that may be used and things that the group that worked through all this public input have come up with. We have our county lawn and the storytelling tour. Some gathering places around the county lawn, also not just the parking lot across the street, but the administration building. And then some landscaping that goes through there, some artwork through there. And then the other part is the storytelling tour, as we talk about trying to tell the story of Indianola, especially the history of the downtown buildings and things that have been here 100 years plus and so on. And taking a little bit example from what other communities have done with their storytelling and their history tours as well too. So another part of that would be the banners here that would be along the 2.5 mile walkway. That's the spinning art, that's kind of to add to that wonder on Buxton, to talk about the art and everything else goes through there. These are a list of people and groups that were asked to provide input for all of this. As you can see, there's plenty of lists there. And also have some funding contributors for the past few weeks. We can see those there. And those have been exciting, in fact, changing daily, it feels like, so as we've been working on that. So those are people that are putting their pocketbook towards this project. The final thing is, as we're looking at just the first part of this project, total anticipated cost is around 167,000. I've listed those all out here. We're working on a Iowa Great Places grant, which of that 167, 138,000 is eligible for through their grant process. There's a few things that are not. Some of the storytelling, some of the light pole art, and lawn landscaping are not eligible for that Great Places grant. So that's what we're working on here in the next 2 weeks, because we need that 50% match. So,
You said storytelling art is not eligible for grant money?
correct. Oh, sorry, the design of the website is not eligible for that grant for the storytelling, because a lot of QR codes that talk about those stories. Great Places is okay with the art, but not with the actual website design. Yeah, you bet. Oh,
Yeah. So picking up on the funding pieces, one of the requirements of the Iowa Great Places grant is that we need to have a dollar for dollar match for any funds we receive through the grant making. And as Doug mentioned, we have been out trying to generate some interest and enthusiasm and donors, and have currently raised $81,000 toward this project. Some of that is by looking at funds that the city is already planning to spend on monument signs that will be in that area that can count as part of our match, even though those funds won't go to the specific elements that are part of the Wonder on Buxton project. So we have raised of that $81,000, approximately $55,000 are directly tied to the different elements of the project that Doug was just speaking to. So we have a little bit of a gap still to fill in our fundraising if we're going to seek the full amount that we can from Iowa Great Places, but also have some asks that they're still out, and which I think we're hopeful about.
A quick question. So on the screens, is that what the clouds are?
Yeah. So one of the elements would be a sculpture series where the shape of the sculpture is consistent in the different places that it would be, but we would be working with the Public Arts Commission to do an RFP to solicit artists who would actually be painting or otherwise doing some kind of art design on the cloud shape. And those are tied to the themes that emerged through our focus groups and surveying of elements that people associate with Indianola. So that's different than the screens that would get put up in the parking lot to shade or, to
Screens being
match the
like
screen.
the covers or?
More like
The
fencing,
fairgrounds?
yeah.
so one of the, you asked about screening.
Yeah. I
This is kind of an area like the painted existing fence, like you talked about, that are around you're asking about screening around the
Dumpsters.
No,
No,
I was in the
Oh,
drawings.
yeah, in
it
the
talks
drawing.
about,
It's just a-
screens, planters placed on edges.
Oh, okay.
So I was curious if the screens were the cloud shape.
No.
No.
Okay.
So I love the concept. I love almost all of it. My concern is the clouds. I'm concerned that they won't match the look of Simpson College and the look of our new square with the pavers and the brick and the sculptures that we already have in place. And so, like I said, I love all of it. I don't love the clouds. The sidewalk patterns, I like your pictures. If that's what it would be, I would be less enthused about painting on the sidewalk. But if it's an inset like that, I would like to see a different idea for the clouds. Maybe like the sculpture at Simpson, the middle of Simpson, the brown, I don't know
Yeah.
what to call it,
Mhm.
a silhouette of balloons. as part of the storytelling project instead of the clouds that will be painted. I mean, color is great, but I think timelessness and down the road maintenance and things like that, it just seems like it would match what we've started. And there's some confusion. Some people have said, well, why aren't we finishing the square? We will, eventually, but this is a separate project, separate monies, all of that. But I do think it would be nice if it tied in, just maybe a little less whimsical, a little more timeless.
And I think our plan as we continue to move with our design partners and then move toward RFP would be making sure that as much as possible, things can flow. This is a project that has the potential to extend, to the other side of the square. If it is,
I
if
love
it's done
telling
well,
it.
right.
I think it's all great.
Right. I do want to speak to part of how we came up with the shape of clouds as opposed to balloons, is that balloons definitely were one of the prominent themes that came up, but was only one of the prominent themes that came up. And so we intentionally were not going with balloon shapes in this, but looking for imagery that was connected to creativity, to that sense of being in the air, which I think is reflected both in the wind sculpture, the banners, but also in those cloud shapes.
Well, that's the only negative feedback I've really had is the concern about the clouds. And I've had several people contact me about that. So I would have to say,
To piggyback, I've also heard
Yeah.
concerns about that and just the durability of them. I don't know what the material is, so I couldn't answer those questions, but
Yeah, and they're gonna be sculpture that is durable.
okay,
It's not like a
okay,
little metal
okay.
piece of plastic. I'm
Yeah.
looking
So
at
is it
John, because
set
John talks about
is it
sign and
set
so on.
though, or are the
Yes.
clouds negotiable still? I mean, if it's city monies going into it and things, I mean, I
need a dollar for dollar match.
Yeah.
So I would think we would all have to
Yeah.
agree.
I mean, I would really like to see a different direction.
Or
there's
maybe
many
we could
people
see a
talking.
better rendering of the cloud.
And when I was looking through the pictures, I'm gonna be honest, I thought it was a mushroom.
The one in front of
The one that's
Panera.
like
I did
orange and
too.
white polka dot.
I love all the work you guys do. I really want you to know
It's a
that.
wonderful.
Everett, yeah.
And so the themes of the clouds are definitely ballooning, Simpson, music and the opera. Agriculture. Yep.
Yeah, I think the themes
Yeah,
are
so-
great. I think it's all great. I think it's just the aesthetic and the appearance.
Mhm.
And
And so we're working with
can't.
all together to give us a really big specifics of what those will not only look like, what they're made out of and everything else too.
Yeah.
But I think
So
there's
it
also,
doesn't come across over on the pictures.
right, and opportunity to continue working with them on refining the concept that
Awesome.
that they've been designing.
That's great. Yeah, because I can't get behind
I
it
think-
like this.
Yeah, as I'm looking at these, and I struggle with this too in my business, but you can't, it's hard to show depth. And these look like flat pieces with this cloud shape. And my guess is they're gonna be shaped.
Yeah,
They're not gonna be just straight up and down. They'll have,
3D
so
project.
they're gonna be
I mean,
more
Ben and I
three-dimensional.
discussed this. Out west, they have, gorgeous horse statues that are professionally painted. And even in Iowa, they have, in Lamar's, they have ice cream cones and I don't know, there's lots of other. communities.
Strawberry and strawberry. pine.
Right, right. But it's really important how it is implemented. So like I said, I'm still not a fan of the clouds. I'm not, but maybe as we see a better design, but the feedback I've received is like hard no on the clouds. So that would be from stakeholders and things. So I'm just passing on the information.
I would suggest perhaps maybe if you can get a sample of what you're thinking.
Well, I think right now, when we get some artists put in place, that will help us better give you guys a better look at what this cloud is going to look like, what the artwork is going to look like. And I think once that's more visual, and we have a better interpretation, because again, we are planning on pairing with all of the different key players and all the things that we're going to be putting onto those clouds to come up with something. Because again, that was the comment. We don't want something, some were saying, we don't want something too whimsical. We want it to be timeless and classic, because we know, having worked on all of these other projects, that one, we want to be able to use it in other spaces if we can going forward, and to make something that's going to have a longevity into it.
I agree with John. I think if you give us some kind of 3D or some kind of design that shows, it's just real hard.
Yeah, it would help.
So one of the things that you probably need in your grant writing process over the next couple of weeks, because this is really
This
coming
is coming
to-
up, yes.
coming, is maybe just a change of the language such that it says
Displays.
sculptures, displays, and then maybe in parentheses, cloud type or similar, or that type
Such
of thing.
as.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
put a
So
little
that,
more
so that
options.
you can
Right.
still use all of your materials and not be locked into a grant with specific language, and then give the freedom to the council and the
Right.
hometown committee and everybody else to put in their feedback and still have that flexibility.
I'm pretty excited. I think,
That would be great.
I think bold colors are gonna be fun, and I think just kind of from what I'm seeing here, I'm excited to see this comes forward, because while we do have, that the look of Simpson, and you got the look of the square, tying that together with something that's a little different and maybe a little bit more bold can be fun. And I think
Now,
I'm
John, you and I
excited.
talked about this.
I know, and I told you I told you you're like my wife, and you like that stuff, but I
Thank
like
you
bold
for all your
colors.
work.
So you like color, I
Thank
like neutral, so like it's a difference of opinion.
All right.
Think we'll find a happy medium in
It's
there.
really great.
There are a couple of pieces that assuming we get the funding and are moving forward with this project, that we will need to bring back to you. So one is that the light pole art, these would be affixed to lampposts. So understanding that, that is something that would require city approval in order to do.
Policy what Charlie's working on right now.
Right.
And
And
then who
then,
would put those up, IMU?
More than likely, we ask
So
for the help, yeah.
work on that with that cost too. Okay. Just trying to think of all the costs there.
going back to the side, I can't remember if it was when somebody had comment or question about the sidewalk and then, so what is that? So I think we also prefer sidewalk inlays to sidewalk painting. It's much more visually appealing, would also be more lasting and would require
And that would be very colorful.
your permission if we are doing something that would involve replacing parts of sidewalks.
Thank you guys for
Thank
all your
you.
hard work.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. That is all we have on the agenda tonight, except for discussion regarding the upcoming agenda and if there's any clarifications on anything.
No, good.
You all good on that?
Yeah, I don't have any questions.
Well, we will take, so we got about 12 minutes and come back at 7 PM and start our regular meeting. Perfect. Thank you. Indianola City Council meeting, October 17th, 2022. If we'd rise to the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Jackie, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Hewlin,
Here.
Parker,
Present.
Dalby,
Here.
Schroeder,
Present.
Beach.
Here.
Richardson.
Present.
Erickson.
Present. We'll move on to public comment. If you have something you'd like to state that's currently not on the agenda, you can come forward, state your name and address for the record. Okay. Appear to be anyone. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Are there any items that need to be pulled?
I asked for claims.
Okay, anything else?
Need to pull claims too, but he beat me to it.
All right, perfect. I need a first and second motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item B, which is claims.
So moved.
Second.
Mayor, I do have a couple questions on a couple things. We can-
Absolutely.
In that way, we don't have to pull them off.
Yep.
On just quickly here. Item E2, Ben, do we have an address on that property?
Yes, that's at the corner of 92 and J Street on the northwest side. The property is owned by the city, just adjacent to the fairgrounds.
Okay. And then item K, let's see, that would be 5K on the resolution for the Robinson subdivision. And that's on gravel, is that correct?
Correct.
I'll make a comment about that later then. And then item P, that's also on, that's a good change over, believe it or not. So you'll can you explain that just briefly, real quickly.
Sure.
So
On
you're
this-
gonna say good change order.
This is a good one though, believe it or not, so.
So on this change order, this is dealing with the Boston project, and basically there is a couple of different issues. There's some laterals that tie into that project where the two laterals come together for one property that this is not going to separate it. So there's two separate laterals for the two different properties out there. We have some damage to some storm drainage pipes that we didn't see until we opened up the ground. They're going to be repaired, as well as the removal of a tree that's an obstacle.
Like I said, it's gonna be good changes. And that we will be contacting neighbors on after that might be affected by that, or we already got it.
F is a different one. F is F Street you're talking
Yeah,
about.
there's aren't some of these folks on that, but they're on Boston as well.
This is on Boston, and there's another one that's going to come up later in the meeting on the corner of the intersection of F Street and Boston.
I'll get to that later. Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Any other questions or highlights? Jackie?
Councilmember Beach.
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Dalby,
Aye.
Schroeder.
Aye.
All right, I need a first and second motion on approval of claims.
So moved.
Second.
And any discussion? Jackie?
Councilmember Schroeder.
Aye.
Beach,
Aye.
Richardson,
Abstain.
Hewlin,
Recuse.
Parker,
Aye.
Dalby.
Aye.
Council report. I need a first and second motion to receive and file the August 2022 treasurer's report.
So moved.
Second.
All right, and discussion. Any questions for Mr. Shaw? He is here. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Receive and file that passes. Need a first and second motion to receive and file the September 2022 treasurer's report.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. And discussion.
I just wanted to point out that, and Councilmember Richardson brought this up, the reason local option sales tax was higher than normal was because they are switching to a new system where they're going to be paying us as the sales tax comes in. They're going to be paying out the local option sales tax. It used to be they would estimate, and then the following year they would give a reconciliation in November. This year they're going to a month by month, and so they were going to give all the cities a reconciliation this month, this past month, and then from here on out they're going to start that month by month. They think it's going to be much more clearer and and much more direct way of getting the local option sales tax out. Cities instead of having a huge either increase or decrease during that month of November.
Do we think, is it gonna be about a month behind? In other words, we'll get to 1 month later that for them to do the paperwork, or is it gonna be right after the month?
It's not gonna be that current month, it's probably gonna be a month behind.
Thank you. The reason I asked that question, folks, if you look at the September agenda or September treasurer's report, Fund 121 on local option sales tax, year on year, it was about $135,000 increase, and that's why I asked that question. So, thank you, Andy.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, moving on, I need a first and second motion to receive and file the September 2022 EMS billing activity report.
So moved as read.
Second.
Any discussion? Gia is here. Well, I'm gonna be disappointed if you don't ask no question. Always
No
ask him a
pressure.
question.
no,
Well, I was just gonna make a comment. I did visit with Greg the other night at the open house, and I don't know, Greg, if you want to address this, but the numbers are way up, which is kind of unusual.
I don't know if it's unusual,
It's
but
way up and unusual, but it's up.
it might be the norm, but we,
Maybe it's unusual.
normally in the past, probably 5 years, we've been averaging about 180 to 200 calls a month. The last couple of months, last 3 months or more, we've been above 280 per month. So they're busy.
And we're still not staffed where we
Yeah.
need to be.
I do want to thank you. You guys threw an excellent public safety open house last week.
Thank you.
It was great. And I saw some who had to mortally leave for emergencies, but it was great.
Thank you.
What's a good intent call?
Good intent is usually something like, we get called, somebody falls, they say they don't have an injury, but they just need help
Okay.
up. That's one type. There's multiple types of like that. We'll go out sometimes for a good intent where their alarm system's activated and they can't reset or they don't know how to reset it. We'll reset it for them.
All right. Any other questions? You take your quote, Evan. Good
I
job.
just want to
Brian.
make sure I asked that question before.
Yeah.
That 282 calls, a lot of calls during the month.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Greg.
you. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, moving on, the Metro Advisory Committee report from Councilmember Richardson.
Thank you. I think, I'm hoping all of you got the notes from that meeting that took place last Tuesday regarding the Metro Advisory Committee. Robert Palmer, legislative lobbyist for League, discussed the League's priorities for the 2023 year. Couple of comments. Over a third of this new legislature coming in January will be rookie legislators with no background on the backfill. Now, if you remember, the backfill is when they changed the commercial property taxes and promised to backfill those dollars with state dollars. And so Mr. Palmer thinks it's going to be a struggle to make sure that the money promised to local government is going to stay there. Hoping we can have our legislators here sometime after the election and maybe talk about that a little bit, because that is a big issue for us as well. Lost taxes, Mr. Palmer thought those would be on the table. He's thinking that there's a couple of reasons for some of it's the online shopping that's not part of the lost sales tax revenue. That seems to make some sense. And the fact that it's distributed differently. I mean, some counties have it, some counties don't, some cities do, some cities don't. So it becomes kind of an issue. But the real issue also is that we lose a little bit of our home rule on that local option sales tax about how we get it, how often we get it, what is it getting. Maybe it's going to be a good thing, maybe it's not, but I think that's a discussion again we need to have with our legislators and really keep our eye on that as that moves through the legislature, if it does move through the legislature. There's also there was discussion a little bit on the stormwater management fees and collected on those, and same with the building codes. Mr. Palmer thinks there may be some erosion of home rule on those two issues, and so we got to keep an eye on that as well. And again, no consensus on what to do with property taxes. If you saw some of the ads on television, they're all talking about lowering property taxes, but they really don't, and he mentioned this, that they really don't realize that there's, go back to our three-leg stool again, there's three parts to this property taxes, and they don't understand that. And so, especially the new ones coming in may not fully understand that whole process. So that's going to be an issue as well. He did say, and I think this is worth repeating, that when talking with our local legislators, we need stories of what property taxes really pay for. What are the good things that they do? What do they pay for? How are we using them appropriately? And he did make some good comments about that as well. And again, the preemption issue, the home rule issue, just again, keep an eye on that. He did mention the constitutional amendment on the ballot this fall. It does offer a more, it's a tougher language than what the United States Constitution is on the Second Amendment. They offered a thing called strict scrutiny, I think it's called. And that is a higher standard that has to be followed in some cases. Constitutional folks on both sides of the issue fall differently on the interpretation of that. So he just said he maybe want to take a look at that as you read through it, get all the information on that. Mayor, I do have one other thing. I did attend an Indianola Downtown Merchants meeting a week ago. One of the things that came out of that, and I did talk to Ben about this as well, is that they are concerned about the lighting in our parking lots around the square and the lighting in our alleys around the square. They would like to see more lighting installed when we do the alleyways and those kinds of things in this next phase of streetscape. A majority of our business owners on the square are women-owned businesses, and so there's some concern at nighttime, especially late in the fall and wintertime, about some of the dark areas. I did, after that meeting, actually take a tour around our alleys and stuff, and we do have some pretty dark areas. So to talk to Ben about that, he said it's on their radar, they're looking at it. So I just wanted to point that out as well.
About that too.
Yeah, that was always part of the plan, clear back. And I know we lose a little bit with Ryan being gone, but that was a big part of the fact that we've got to be able to have parking on the backside and comfortability and the alleyways, lights strung back and forth and totally lit up down through there. So.
And it doesn't necessarily, and I think Gwen brought up a good point in one of the discussions she and I had, that it doesn't have to necessarily, it could be decorative lighting in some cases too, in some of those alleyways and things. But I did drive by Simpson, the parking lot on North Howard, and that was lit up very, very well. And I think if you get a chance to drive by that at night, and I think that's probably what we need to do in our parking lots. So, just a thought.
Yep.
Great points. And thanks for typing up your notes for the agenda. I like that. So appreciate it. All right. Thanks, Steve. We'll move on to Mayor's report. It's been a kind of busy couple weeks. We had the Dearman Board opening last week, and want to thank Doug and Paul Dearman for their investment in community. And it definitely helps that North Corridor, when you're coming in, I know several of you were there. Our public safety held an open house. Lots of people there. I don't even know. Do we have a number? No, but there was lots of people there. Very well attended. Lots of food served. We also had a legislative debate and a county debate last week in Carlisle. It was put on by the chambers. Simpson Homecoming seemed like it was a great success. And then they brought back the balloons glowing between the fraternities and KKG, which was great. Lots of people there as well too. And then the Mayor's Youth Council would like to challenge our council for the trunk or treat to be minions.
Be what?
Minions.
For the library trunk or treat?
Yeah, for the library trunk or
And who
treat.
is challenging it?
Our Mayor's Youth Council. They want to know who is going to do it better. I mean, yellow and blue looks good on everybody, right? We can probably still debate that a little bit. If you guys have better ideas by Wednesday morning. And then again, we have Mayor's Youth Council coming up this Wednesday, and we will be doing an event with the downtown square. I know I kind of mentioned it last time, but it will be at the Elks, December 11th for the Home for the Holidays, December 10th, I apologize, for the Home for the Holidays event. And we will have, you can write letters to Santa Claus and we will respond to them. Well, their elves will respond to them, I should say. That's all I have. We'll move on to public consideration. Moving on to old business, we have fiscal year 23 budget. I need a first and second motion to open the public hearing regarding an amendment to fiscal year 23 budget.
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councilmember Beach,
Hi.
Richardson,
Oh, thanks, Jackie.
Aye.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Dolly,
Aye.
Schroeder.
I,
Keep me right on track, Jackie.
Mayor, members of the council, I'm here to answer any questions you might have for the budget amendment. Most of this is moving some items from FY 22 into FY 23, stuff for the library, finishing up the wastewater treatment plant. There are some office remodeling, new mat for the EOCs so that the police officers can do some of their hand-to-hand training and stuff like that. And then the sirens, which is being offset with the grant. And then Phillips Flooring Development Grant, that's something that we had from last year. That'll be collected later through TIF with the development agreements. Any questions on any that I've listed?
Anyone in the audience ask a question on any of this? Something to say? All right, need a first and second motion to close the public hearing. Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Councilmember Dolly,
Aye.
Schroeder.
Aye.
Beach,
Hi.
Richardson,
Aye.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
I need a first and second motion on a resolution approving an amendment to the fiscal year 23 budget.
So moved as read.
Thank you. And discussion. Being none, Jackie, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Parker,
Aye.
Dolly,
Aye.
Schroeder.
Aye.
Beach,
Hi.
Richardson,
Aye.
Hewlin.
Aye.
All right, we will move on to item number 2, which is fireworks. We have 2 sections here. If there's someone who is in the audience and would like to speak, this first part is pertaining to fireworks sale locations, which will bring us to code. So I need a first and second motion to open the public hearing regarding an amendment to the Indianola Code of Ordinances pertaining to the fireworks sale locations.
so moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. And again, this one is for the sale, not for the use.
Yes.
Councilmember Beach,
No, go ahead.
Hi.
Richardson,
Aye.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Dolly,
Aye.
Schroeder.
Aye.
Thank goodness Jackie knows what's going
Just
on.
so excited to talk about this.
She's being really efficient to get us out.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jackie.
Kind of give me that look too. Really quick on this one. So, and all the information was included in your packet, but Senate File 2285 was signed by the governor this past April, which required all cities to allow for all fireworks sales in all commercial and industrial zoning districts. Currently, we as a city only allow for sales in our C2 highway commercial zoning district and then our 2 industrial zoning districts. So our C1 neighborhood commercial zoning district, which we do not have any property zoned as that within the city, currently does not allow for it. And then our C3 zoning district, which is mainly our downtown area, does not allow for fireworks sales. So by making this amendment, we are going to allow for them in both the C1 and the C3, which brings us into compliance with what the state legislature passed. So a little bit different than obviously, as the mayor said, the item regarding the use, but we as a city do have to require sales be allowed within the city. We do not have an option to say that we can not allow sales.
And just for clarification for anyone, if we were to even ban them, the use in town, they can still sell.
Yes.
There's nothing we can do.
Yes, can't do anything about that.
Okay. Any questions for Charlie?
So say on the square, they still have to follow distance guidelines and all that stuff.
Yes.
Okay. I look to Chief on that one because he's much more in tune on this.
Yeah, on the code, they still have to go through the whole procedure, going through the state to get their license, and all of their drawings or their footprint needs to go through and be okay. Once they come to us, then we do a walkthrough to make sure that everything is compliant within the city.
Sorry, the square probably wouldn't be there. Property, so we'd be able to be compliant.
Yeah, there's some restrictions that are in there when you follow 1124. So,
Okay.
I don't
Yeah.
think we have any that currently sell on the square.
No, I know, but
Yeah.
because we didn't allow it before, now we have
Because
to.
the word-
Yeah, that was my only question. So, okay. Thank you, sir.
Well, again, I think again, and just a comment, it's another case, in my opinion, of eroding that home rule issue too. That, cities should be
All right, any other questions? I need a first and second motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second. Jackie?
Councilmember Beach,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Dalby,
Aye.
Schroeder.
All right, we will move on now to the use of fireworks. Oh, well, actually, I apologize. I need first and second motion on the first consideration of an ordinance amending the code of ordinances of the city of Indianola for fireworks sale locations.
So moved, Brett.
Second.
And Jackie.
Councilmember Dalby,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Beach,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
All right, we will move on now to the use. I need a first and second motion on the first consideration. Oh, did I just read that one? Okay, of an ordinance amending the use of fireworks in the city of Indianola.
So moved.
Thanks.
Second.
Sorry, we're on C now. All that worded verbiage that's the same. Jackie? Would you call roll on this? So a first and second motion on the first consideration of ordinance amending the use.
Right, yeah, so.
We,
hang on a
We just
second.
did B.
Right, what it is you just made a motion to alter the use of, prohibit the use.
I would like to withdraw my,
I just want to make sure you want.
yeah,
Alright,
yeah,
so-
okay.
Who would like to speak on this staff recommendations, Charlie? On the use?
We gotta get a
Yeah, we
motion.
gotta get a
motion.
I'm
Councilmember
confused. Where are we in?
I'm confused too. We
We're-
just finished the sale,
Yeah.
but
Right.
now we're going into the
Right,
usage.
so now we're talking about use and we have a motion.
We don't.
We don't
have
know.
to
Restate the
But
motion.
you're asking for a motion to amend the use, right?
To prohibit.
To have the
Prohibit.
discussion, yes, to
Okay,
have that
the
discussion.
Okay.
So that's what I'm asking. It doesn't mean we're doing it until
Okay.
we vote. I just need a motion to open that conversation. And then staff will give the recommendation and then we can discuss. Correct?
Is that correct?
No, there's no public hearing for that.
No public hearing.
Right, so the item on the agenda is to, under staff recommendation, is to prohibit the use of fireworks in the city limits.
So is there a motion? Or not?
Somebody needs to make a motion.
Right, yeah, that's what she's asking.
That's what- yeah.
Somebody needs to make a motion.
And then we can
And
have a
then we-
discussion.
The council can discuss, yes, but it's not a public hearing.
Yes, okay.
I would make a motion to open discussion.
The second? Second. Okay. All right. So staff has put together their recommendation. Is there someone from the staff that'd like to speak on this then? Is that you?
Sure, I'll start talking and we'll ask Chief Chia to jump in as well. So basically, there was concerns coming from the residents with regard to the use of fireworks within our community. Several complaints were emailed to our elected leaders as well as to city staff with regard to those the use and the violation of the uses as well. Fireworks starting earlier than the appropriate time period and later in the evening, as well as the stress that it causes to our veterans and to our pets. There was enough concern that residents went out and did a petition, and it's my understanding that 636 signatures were obtained requesting that the city of Indianola change its fireworks policy and remove the use of fireworks. We did some study and analysis of the number of calls for service, both within the city of Indianola for police and fire, as well as statewide and in the metro area. And based on all of that, the staff recommendation is to modify the use of fireworks to be amended so that they are now prohibited. Provide clarity, and Chief Tia probably can jump in with any comments and thoughts that you have.
In my opinion, I would be in favor of this amendment. You have an explosive that's allowed by somebody that's untrained. Now, I like fireworks just like everybody else, but as long as it's done by a licensed commercial or a display that's company that is licensed through the ATF, that I don't have an issue with that at all. In fact, we just had one Friday that Simpson brought in J&M
It was beautiful too.
And they had a display there in the evening. J&M usually is the contractor that comes in for the balloons. That was no issue. Well, I do have, and we have every year had injuries. Some more, it fluctuates, but when you get individuals that are untrained, and it's a remedy, or I shouldn't say a remedy, but it's a, in that inexperience, you're gonna have injuries no matter what, at some time. Some of them are pretty minor, but there are the potential to have critical injuries. And that's, we've seen that, not only here, but across the metro and state.
There, I know there's several cities that had the ban. Does that seem to alleviate the problem, or do they have a stronghold on offenders, such as the state?
You're not gonna stop it 100% on that. There are gonna be people, and then prior to 2017, when they, they granted this, you still had people that were shooting fireworks off in the city limits. I think it will limit them.
Any questions for Chief Chia?
I know Chief Shearer's not here. The conversations you had with the chief, what, is there any way maybe you can maybe address some of his thoughts on the issue as well?
I think his thought process is gonna be, how does he enforce it? And that becomes difficult. Because until they actually see them firing the product, there's not a whole lot that they can do. They may see smoke, they may see the end product going off, but it makes it difficult for the law enforcement side.
There is a statewide fine of $250 if they are.
That's correct.
They can write a citation, but they have to report, they may have to report.
Right.
And I know in Norwalk, their mayor shared that, because I believe they have a band, correct, am I correct? I don't think you can let them off there, but if they see them going off over a house and they can track where that smoke is from, the owner of that house is given that ticket, regardless if the owner did it or not. So if it's a rental, it is on that property owner's responsibility.
Yeah, constitutionally.
I don't think they have a lot of problems with it, but I imagine they probably did the first couple of
My
years.
neighbor lit one off and went over my
Right,
house.
and I got the ticket.
Right?
You're gonna bet.
Somebody would be pretty unhappy.
And honestly, I think you're gonna have, we're talking about how it's already hard for them to police this issue. Well, if we ban it, it's gonna be even harder to police the issue.
I think
So,
Des Moines numbers, call for service numbers on it go up every year.
right, and there's
And
been
there's-
studies done in areas before it was legalized here that show that you have equal to the amount of injuries, if not more injuries, when they're banned, because people are doing idiotic things to prevent getting caught while lighting them off. So, and that's,
Is there a compromise maybe here that we could look at? Staff's recommendation is to ban them, but if that's not what the council wants, maybe we could give some ideas and to take back to staff.
Well,
Is that limiting hours, limiting days?
well, the motion was first consideration of ordinance amending the use of fireworks in the city of Indianola. It doesn't specific, the memorandum says to ban it.
And yeah,
But the agenda item says basically first consideration of amendment. My concern is this, go ahead. I just-
I think it says to prohibit
It
those.
does.
Yeah, it does.
Yes.
It's what prohibit the use of
Yeah.
first-class consumer
Does it
fireworks.
say that in the?
Yep.
It doesn't say
Yeah.
in the posted item, but it does in the resolution that's attached
Yeah.
to the agenda.
Right.
Yeah.
so which one do we have to abide by?
You gotta go by the amendment as published. You could send it back for more study, just to add it.
So we could
Yeah.
deny the motion tonight.
The issue, I have the issue is I have veterans living next to me. One veteran said he's okay if he leaves, to leave 3 days and go someplace, it's kind of an inconvenience. He gets it, but Yeah, the one that I'm talking about specifically served in Iraq and Afghanistan both. Got some severe PTSD, had a bunch of dogs, service dogs. He ended up in the corner of his basement one night with his dogs. So, I mean, you know, I have a concern about 3 days of doing this, and I have a concern that you know, we're not really watching out for all of the folks in our community. We do have signatures of 636 people that said to ban it. You know, it's a small percentage, but you know, in some of our city elections, that's a big people. So, yeah, if we could limit it to 1 day, 4th of July, I think it'd be great. You know, I wouldn't have a problem with that.
You know, I don't totally disagree with you, Steve, but I think, again, this goes back to, you're coming to the wrong people to try to stop it. We didn't allow the sale of them.
Right.
We can stop the fire them off inside the city limits, but as you can see from all the other area communities, that doesn't stop it. This is a state issue, so I appreciate the 600 some signatures. You need to send them to the state, to the legislature, and tell them to change, because really this has been foisted on us. You know, I mean,
Because whether we ban them or not, you know, I get the PTSD issue, but no matter where this person goes, he's gonna be hearing fireworks if he's still within the US. You know, 'cause
Well, yes and no. I mean,
people let him legally.
Sure. I guess from my perspective, I think we can limit it to 1 day. I think we can limit it to the 4th of July, I think. In talking at one of the MAC meetings I attended a couple months ago, the mayor of Perry, or the police chief of Perry was on there, and so was the mayor. They banned them last year. They did a heavy enforcement 3 or 4 days before the 4th of July. They wrote them, I don't know how many citations they wrote. And he said it was a quiet 4th of July. That's Perry, Iowa. But unfortunately, it would fall to our police department to do that. And I get that, I understand that, and that's not really the role, you know, that you want to necessarily be, because our force has done a great job, and so has Chia's group. But I'm gonna have to side with saying we got to do something. 3 days is a lot.
I'm gonna agree with you on that. I share those same thoughts. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, actually, you have 4 days.
Well, you have the 31st of
Yeah.
December,
Yes.
is that right? Yeah.
Oh,
right? How often? Do we get calls? I don't even.
There
hear
were
'em.
some that go off in our neighborhood.
I didn't even hear them last year. So.
I would just, personally, I would just say the 4th of July, you know, and end at 10 or 11 o'clock on the 4th, from whatever time to 11 o'clock at night, and go with it.
Same thing with the New Year's Eve.
I mean, I would
Yeah, I
say,
suppose, yeah.
I mean, I would be more on board with keeping, because 4th of July weekend, you're gonna have, if it falls on a
Depends what day
weekend,
it
yeah.
falls.
I think that was the problem this year. It fell on
Right.
a weekend.
Yeah.
And I think if we did the day before and the 4th, and then eliminated every other
The day after.
holidays, the day after, I don't even care if we do it on New Year's. I mean,
Well, I think
there's not a lot.
they're gonna be selling.
We don't
them,
have
so-
tents, you
Right.
know, that are
Yeah,
set
they
up for New
Right,
Year's.
right,
We're
correct.
seeing more
And
with
that's
this
where with
legislation change.
Comparing,
They're standalone buildings now.
Right.
They're purchasing them in Des Moines.
well, and with comparing with like a place like Perry, you have to consider how many fireworks sales tents do they have per, you know, per capita in the, you know,
Yeah.
city. We have one, just, I mean,
7.
everywhere. I mean,
And Andy, I imagine we make a pretty good from the local option sales tax. Do we get see a chunk of that, or
There's no way to tell.
or
what
have an
to say.
idea?
There's
Because
no
they
way
don't-
to pertain just to fireworks.
They don't report.
That'd have to come from the state.
Yeah.
Well, maybe now that we're being paid monthly, we'll be able to figure it out next year, what that difference is, but.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say that, I'd like to add that, you know, the signatures with the 600 compared to elections, that's not a huge number, but I can tell you that this is the most that I've ever heard from people, from the public on this
Yeah.
topic. This is the most that I've heard from anybody.
Right.
And I don't want to discount staff's recommendation,
No, I
because
don't.
I think it's really important to take that in consideration. So I also would definitely favor 1 day before. And the, you know, New Year's, I don't think it's as heavily as popular. So I don't think that there's the issue there, but I would agree with the 1 day.
Do you think we can enforce it? I mean, I'd go third and fourth maybe, and
So I did talk to Chief Shear about this, and his concern is basically, it really doesn't matter. If you have it open, they have to enforce. If you shrink it, they have to enforce. If you eliminate it altogether, they enforce. And it does go back to Councilmember Richardson's comment about Perry. If you enforce hard 1 year, then it makes it a little bit easier going forward. The challenge that our law officers have is really the amount of the fine established by the state that they don't have the authority to change. We could make it larger, but really they can't make it smaller. And because they can't make it smaller, it's challenging for our law officers to walk up to somebody and hit them with a $250 ticket right off the bat. That's pretty painful. And I know it's uncomfortable for our officers to put them in that situation, but they have to do it regardless of which path you want to follow.
well, if we're gonna cut it back, I'd rather say third and fourth. It's like when it does fall on a weekend, I think, there's always, that always plays into it. New Year's Eve, I never hear that much. So I can imagine that would be a huge issue. It's cold and there aren't sales in town. and everything. But
I echo what Lynn's saying. I'd be on board for cutting it back a day. I think at 1 day, you're still going to have a massive amount of fireworks being shot off. If it was limited to just 1 day. I mean, we have
Maybe
7.
ending at 10 p.m.
We have 7 tents in town, so I mean,
at least.
it'd be tough to just have so many places that sell them and then be able to try to enforce it if we banned it altogether. I think that put a huge burden on our police department.
Yeah.
But do you think though, if we did ban it, that the number of tents would diminish as well?
No, because I think we have so much traffic that goes east and west and north and south out of our town. No, I don't think it would diminish.
Because you see tents all over West.
Oh, I know.
Urbandale. They have permanent buildings in
Right,
Western Wayne, they
right.
don't allow.
I go back to my veteran neighbors. I talking with them, they are okay with the day, 1 day. But to spread it out over 2 or 3 days, and that's really, because they can leave for the day. They can go out in the country, they can go fishing at some pond overnight or whatever the case, and do that. But to ask them to leave home for 2 or 3 days, I just have a difficult time with that. I'd like to stick to 1 day, but the council makes a decision down the road.
So we're at a point here where we're at it. We got a amendment or a.
So clearly we have a motion and a second on the
Right,
table,
yeah.
and there needs to be a vote. It sounds like the consensus is the vote to deny this. I mean, obviously you'll go through and each place your individual vote. But what I'm hearing is that there's a directive for us to bring this back to the council for future consideration at the next council meeting to limit it to 1 day per year, which would be the 4th of July.
I was hearing too, so.
So the New Year's
July
on the 4th
No,
or
no,
on the 4th
July
and
July
3rd,
3rd.
right?
Yeah, July 3rd and 4th was.
I personally be okay with the 3rd and 4th and New Year's as well. I mean, there's like when I said I hear maybe 1 or 2 fireworks on New Year's.
And I want to be clear, I'm very sympathetic to veterans. I'm the daughter of a veteran. I grew up surrounded by all of my parents' friends were veterans. Many of my brother's friends. So I'm not of the era that anyone was involved, but I don't want to dismiss that.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and we'll take a roll call. So this again, if voting yes would be to ban fireworks and voting no would be to send it back to staff. So Jackie?
Councilmember Doolin?
Yay.
Oh, you want to ban?
Nay.
As opposed to,
Dolly?
yeah.
No.
Schroeder?
No.
Beach?
No.
Richardson?
Aye.
All right, so motion passes. We'll send it back to staff. And if you guys want to bring that back to our next meeting or first meeting in November, give you some time.
so it won't take much time to change it. I just want to be really clear. 2 days in July and 1 day at
New Year's
at
Eve.
New Year's Eve.
Right.
So we're going from 4 days to 3. Okay, all right.
Good discussion, though, folks.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Great. All right, so we need a first and second motion on a resolution approving an agreement with the Iowa Department of Transportation for Surface Transportation Block Grant Program, Federal Aid SWAP Project, Hillcrest Avenue Reconstruction Project.
Certain book is read.
Second.
That was a mouthful.
That was a
Whoa. Hi, AP.
Hey.
I'm glad I could say that.
Yeah.
Easily.
So this is a contract with Iowa DOT to basically say that this project will be done per the federal standards, Iowa DOT standards, to meet everything, including bid letting requirements, which is basically it will be bid through the state, not through the city of Indianola. The inspection requirements, design requirements, environmental, everything, the ADA, all the requirements that's needed in the state, will follow those standards. In return, we are getting roughly about $3.8 million of funding through the Iowa DOT. And this is through the Regional Planning Association, CERTPA, which is Central Iowa Regional Transportation Association. We fund through them. This table kind of shows us where we are standing in terms of funding. So we need the consent from the council to sign the agreement with Iowa DOT.
AP, this moves forward, what's the plan on letting? When do you think that will be done?
I think the original bid letting was in December or January. I'll have to go and see that. We are still going through the final stage of the design. We have to work with IMU. I'll have to Snyder. No one is from here from Snyder, but if I recall it right, it's January or December.
For a fall, for a spring paving or?
Spring paving. And
will it be sidewalk on both sides of Hillcrest then?
so there will be a trail extension along the north side of Hillcrest and then a sidewalk along the south. And this will be only till that trailhead or the trail crossing on Hillcrest. It won't go all the way till 14th Street.
Okay. And curb and gutter, right? That's urban design.
Yes, it'll be a 3-lane. The concept is a 3-lane roadway with a central left turn lane.
Those transition lines will stay in the air, right? They're not going to be putting those underground.
What was that? Sorry?
The transmission lines, the IMU's lines, those will stay.
Those will stay. Yep.
All right.
We're already at 6.6.
Yeah, I know.
How far east is it going, AP?
So it's going all the way from 4th Street to 14th Street.
4th Street, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
But the sidewalk will connect all the way from 65, 69 to the trail.
Okay.
So in the CIP, it shows that it's a little bit over 7 million. Is this the actual number or the CIP number?
So this is construction cost. Well, this also shows the engineering. Maybe it shows.
I mean,
new CIP shows 7
It's
million.
about $400,000 off is why I asked.
It might have been some of the money that we have spent in FY22 for design. I think that's probably what my.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right, any questions?
Thanks,
Anyone
AP.
else? Thanks, AP. Jackie?
Councilmember Dolby,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Beach,
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
All right, we'll move on to discussion and direction on proposed change order number 5 for the 2022 infrastructure improvement project for Boston Avenue.
Now we
Sorry,
can
AP, I should have told you not to go anywhere. I saw your name next. I just wanted you to get your steps in.
So this is for the Boston Avenue and North F Street construction that's ongoing. When it was designed, Boston Avenue was the main corridor where the pavement drainage was designed for the flow on Boston Avenue. But soon they realized doing that will have future challenges whenever North F Street is reconstructed. So Snyder has redesigned at no cost to the city, redesigned the whole thing and presented a cost estimate of roughly $25,000 to propose a change in design where the main flow will be on F Street, which means extending the F Street to be consistent with our future plans on F Street is where we are proposing. This is not a final number. we are still negotiating with the construction contractor on what that number will be. We are trying to compromise a number, and it will eventually come to y'all. But what we don't want to do is we don't want to delay this project. We want some kind of direction from council, whether you approve this change order or not.
So AP, there were a couple of houses that linked together on Sanitary, is that correct, on this project, or is this part of this
That was
project?
on
That was the last one?
That was the last one.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And this one then, how far on F Street are we gonna go? And this was the stormwater issue or not?
Yes, this is the stormwater. So they will be roughly about 90-95 feet. We are going north, and then we are reducing some on Boston Avenue.
Okay, yeah, going further west, I think.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Get it right. I mean,
Yeah, I think
that's
they did it
the
right.
key.
You gotta do it right.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's a good change.
Yep.
Believe it or not.
Wow.
Boy, you're getting
Make
soft
sure
as
that's in the
rolls.
minutes,
Soft
Jackie.
mile days,
Man, imagine by the end of next year. All right, thanks, AP. So I guess our direction is to move forward with that. We don't have a vote on this, so, all right.
Yeah.
Perfect. Move on to other business, city manager's report from Ben Reeves.
Okay, Mayor and Council, one of the items on there is the discussion regarding the bird scooters. And I know that there's been some frustration amongst the council and the comments coming in from the public with regard to these bird scooters and consideration by the council on whether you want to renew. I did reach out to Simpson to see what kind of impact that might have on them, and I did receive a response back that it would be overly impactful. But before you consider what you want to do with bird scooters, a few minutes before our council meeting began, we received a notice indicating that they are withdrawing their service from us rather than us even considering what we're going to do.
Solve that problem.
We got that.
So it's a moot
tired of
point,
us.
and we can move on.
I think it's okay to have high expectations, especially with the snow coming and, you know, they weren't living up to their side, but I think it's okay. It's mutual. learning and we'll move
Wish them
forward.
well.
Well, and I think they probably found it was difficult because they were struggling with.
I think they were struggling with a staff member, you know, to be located here. And so I do wish them well in other metro areas and sorry to work out with that.
Yep, the date of their letter is October 14th, so the last day of service here in Indianola will be November 14th.
Right, we'll use those dollars on your bird scooters. And can we make sure we get something out on the website for people to use those dollars before November 14th? Perfect.
Can I just back up a second on one issue too? If we could have, and I don't know, is Chief is still here? Yeah, Chief. When we get an approval for a fireworks display in the community, can we get that information out to the council members? Because I do have some folks that would like to know that. So, okay, sure, possible. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. And so
we approved that. At some point. I mean, that I couldn't, thanks for coming back. I couldn't remember when we approved it or if maybe it was approved last year, but.
On commercial displays, they have to come to my office and get a permit.
Right.
And that, I usually let Jackie know, or
Right.
at least my department knows, I can put that out to everybody.
I think that if you could, that'd be great. I appreciate that.
Did the city put out a notice about the,
No.
okay, in the future?
when
can
when
we?
it's our event, you know,
Yeah.
we would obviously, but when it's a
Right.
different. incident.
If we get a permit application, maybe just go forward if we
Yeah.
could, because, yeah, I had a lot of people that.
Good, how are you?
So, oops. Who do we have?
Fine. But, so I can put that out to everybody that once they get a commercial permit from us.
Can we not usually approve off on those like in our consent agenda or anything?
No,
No.
no, it's his call.
It's,
And
yeah.
It was a
especially,
beautiful show.
Yeah.
In all the positivity, Simpson did a really good job with. the
And we
fireworks.
do an inspection. We go on site and do an inspection before they shoot them off. Because they have to go by distance. It's 70 feet per 1 inch of mortar.
right. And the other thing to keep in mind too, correct me if I'm wrong, chief, but if we would have another horribly dry summer, 4th of July, you can declare.
Yes, if we are under a burn ban, that eliminates everything.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Is it great? Is it Rick? Okay, Ben, anything else for your report?
Just wanted to extend appreciation to the staff, a bunch of different things. We talked about public safety tonight and not only the amount of money that they raised for the K-9 and the assistance from the Lions Club, but they really put themselves out there, allowing taser demonstrations on our firefighters, from our police officers. I don't know if that's good for morale between the departments or not, but enough of the firefighters pulled the tail of the dog that happened to be there, trying to raise money for his crew, which was Brian in his Halloween costume. We also had a fantastic city cleanup, AP and the streets crew, along with some support from the sewer department. Just had the most efficiently run setup and pulling through and taking care of all that. They did great. We had a great K Street meeting and answered a lot of questions from the public out there, and appreciate Councilmember Schroeder for recommending us have that meeting, and Councilmember Beach for attending as well. And then I just wanted to ask a quick question. Oh, we also have a ribbon cutting that will be coming up the last week of October for the completion of the square, phase 1, the 4 blocks. We will get you an exact date, but we want to invite the council out to that. So it's exciting to see that come in the last week of October. Great praise can be given to Charlie and to AP and to all those involved in that project, along with our engineers and contractors. And then as I'm planning for a future council retreat and strategic planning session, one of the questions that I have is, the council, you especially to our newer council members and elected leaders, you're really in the groove now. You're in the routine and whatnot. But when the strategic priorities were set back in January, you were fairly new. Do those priorities need to be revisited, or are we okay with being able to go forward with those? So I'm seeing heads shake that it would probably be good within a retreat to revisit.
I think it would be good to review.
The intent behind that is we really want to make sure that as we're bringing items through on the council agenda, as we're setting priorities for the staff effort, and even the allocation of dollars within our budget process, we want to tie those back to the priorities that the council is setting every day. I know that we all have individual projects that we like to work on, but those can be accomplished when resources are available. But the more we can stay on focus and track, the more we want to do that for you, because you are like a leaders representing the public, and you want to make sure we're accomplishing those things that you set us out to do. That's all I have.
Thank you.
All right, we will move on. I need a first and second motion to enter into closed session in accordance with Iowa Code Section 21.51J to discuss the purchase of sale of particular real estate only where premature disclosure could be reasonably expected to increase the price the governmental body would have to pay for that property or reduce the price that the governmental body would receive for that property.
So moved is read.
Second. Thank you, Jackie. Oh, that one was long.
Councilmember Dalby?
Oh,
Aye.
I just know it up.
Schroeder? Aye. McKee?
Aye.
Richardson?
Aye.
Hewland?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye. Let us be.